Our guest right now is a longtime supporter of the Adventures in Advising podcast, and that is Amanda Roberts-Mather, Assistant Director for the Academic Services Office at Texas A&M University at Qatar. Amanda earned her bachelor's degree in history from Texas A&M and thought for the longest time of becoming a history teacher, but working as an admin assistant, found her way into academic advising and hasn't turned back. Amanda has been in academic advising for the last 15 years and a NAKATA member for 12 years. Previously, Amanda served as a senior academic advisor and prior to that, administrative coordinator at Texas A&M University, and was also a field trip coordinator at College Station ISD. Amanda is a born and bred Texan, but currently lives in Doha, with the two places being very similar with weather, hot in summer and pleasant in the winter. What's also similar is Arabic hospitality is very much like Southern hospitality, generous, welcoming, and they feed you until you pop. Amanda is also very active in NAKATA and also participated in the Emerging Leaders Program, the 2017, the 2019 cohort, the best cohort in my opinion. And let's welcome Amanda. Hey, Amanda.
Howdy, Matt. Thanks. I'm glad to be here today.
We've been wanting to have you on as a guest for a while. So, all the stars aligned and here we are. So usually we start our podcast kind of asking our guests to kind of give us your path into advising, kind of like your background story. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So like you mentioned, I had always thought I was going to be a high school history teacher. My degree is in history. I have a passion for it. I nerd out over history. So I thought, I want to teach this. And it is my firm belief in the hands of the right instructor, history can be really, really interesting, or in the wrong instructor's hands, spectacularly boring. And unfortunately, I think a lot of instructors are not the right ones. So I was going to be a spectacularly interesting, fascinating history teacher. And then I got to college and I loved my classes, but I thought maybe I don't want to put myself in that position as a 21-year-old teaching 17, 18-year-olds. So maybe I need a little bit more experience. So I went to work for College Station ISD as a field trip coordinator. Loved that, but I really wanted to get back to Texas A&M. And so I ended up working in the College of Engineering as an administrative coordinator for one of the departments. And I kept having students come to ask me about their degree plans, about what classes they would take. The advisor in that department at the time was a little bit of a dragon lady, and students were a little bit scared to go ask her these questions. She didn't suffer fools. She was real nice. She just didn't suffer fools. And, so they were a little bit scared of her. So people noticed that they were coming to me, and a lot of folks said, you'd be a really good academic advisor. Have you considered us? No, I haven't. But then literally next door, the next building over, there was a position posted. I applied for it. And then it took them a while to get back to me, and I forgot that I had applied. But long story short, October 2006 is when I started academic advising, and I have really feel like I have found my niche. This is what I am meant to do. And now over here in Doha, I do more administration than advising, but I do still have some advising job duties as well. But I love it. I love being around the students. I love seeing the light bulbs go on in their heads. I love seeing a problem work its way to a solution. And the best day of my year every year is graduation. There's always those students where you feel like you kind of have to pull them across the stage, but they did it, they got there. And I just absolutely love celebrating with them.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Like, you want to be a history teacher and then decide, this may not be what I want to do. And let me go find something else. And then kind of stumbled upon the whole academic advising profession. So I'm just trying to think, if Amanda went and became a history teacher, I would never have met her. So I'm glad you went the academic advising route.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, that's very true. There's a lot of things in my life that I would not have. I would not be in Doha if I had decided to get my teacher certification. So yeah, I'm very grateful to be where I am.
Yeah, and I guess kind of going into making that decision to apply for that academic advising position, I think I had read that many people had encouraged you to apply for that advising position. Do you think you still would have applied for that other college's academic advising position had it not been for that encouragement?
I enjoyed the job that I was in. I was, and I worked with a small faculty, about 8 or 9 faculty, small engineering program, and really liked it. And students were great. But it was just never something that ever was on my radar. When I was in college in the 90s, academic advising was not really something that was marketed so much as it is now. I went through 4 advisors in 3 years, just because and that particular department didn't require advising. It was optional. You could go and ask questions, but a lot of it, students were kind of left to fend for themselves and figure it out. And so my goal as an advisor is to not be the kind of advisor I had as an undergrad, and to really make sure that students know that they are so much more than their ID number. They are so much more than their GPA and what's on their transcript. And I really worked very hard to develop those relationships. So yeah, advising was not something that I had ever considered as a career path until it kind of landed in my lap. And I'm glad it did, because yeah, my mom jokes that I get paid to tell people what to do, which is not untrue, but in a good way.
Right. Well, we're more of a give you a lot of suggestions.
Yes. I advise, you decide.
Right. Now, was it hard for you to make that decision to leave Texas for this new position, or position you've been in now for a few years in Doha?
Yeah, it was incredibly hard. I bawled out of the airport, and probably so we flew from College Station to Houston, which is about a 35-minute flight. And then we had a few hours layover and then a flight to Germany. And I think I probably cried a good 7 or 8 hours that day. But, we both really liked working for Texas A&M. My husband is an IT administrator, and he worked for civil engineering, and I was in the College of Education. And folks had kind of encouraged us to look at, there was a faculty member, particularly in his department, that said, you've got to come to Doha. You've got to come check it out. And so when those 2 positions were posted at the same time, we looked at each other and said, this is a sign that this is something we're supposed to do. We need to have this adventure. And we both had always wanted to live and work abroad. We never really considered the Middle East as an option, because, I guess being from Texas, you don't, if you want to live and work abroad, you think maybe Australia or somewhere in Europe, but the Middle East it doesn't cross your mind much. But I'm so glad that we have moved here, because it has been such an eye-opening experience, and we have been so welcomed. And expat life will challenge you in ways that you never imagined. Until we moved to Doha, I had never lived more than 3 hours drive from my family, and we are incredibly close. And so that was really, really hard. But we Skype every Sunday. I talk to my mom and dad. Sometimes my sisters join in if they're not carting, schlepping kids everywhere. We have an app called Marco Polo that we send videos back and forth on. So I have been able to see my niece's band concerts and choir concerts and all that. We try to get home at least once a year. It's been over a year now since we've been home, because pandemic made it a little bit more difficult. But without technology, I don't know that I could have done it. But we've also been very, very lucky to find a really great, tight-knit group of Aggies here in Doha. A lot of us came from the main campus. We are former students of the university. We don't call ourselves alumni, because once you're an Aggie, you're always an Aggie. So we're former students. So there's a tight-knit group of us. And the Qatar Foundation that Texas A&M falls under, that umbrella, they provide housing for us. And so we had 3 or 4 options to choose from. And we live downtown, and it's a 40-story building. We're on the 16th floor. 2 of our very best friends are on 9 and 20. Our director of records, who's also a very close friend, former advisor, he is on 24. We have some faculty. So it's really like living in a grown-up dorm. It's great. So that support has been critical as well. So we really do have an extended family here that's made this experience so much more worthwhile, and it's just been amazing. It was tough, but both of us felt like it was the right time to do it in our careers. I was happy where I was. I liked my job, but my boss wasn't going to go anywhere. There wasn't really any place for me to advance in that department. So I really knew that if I wanted to do something different, or move up, then I was going to have to go to either another department or another institution. I didn't really expect to go 8,000 miles away.
That's what I was gonna say. I'm like, yeah, usually when people want to have that professional growth, it's I'll go to another department or maybe another institution, a few miles away.
Yeah.
Not that I'm gonna pack up and take my life to overseas.
Yeah. Yeah. But it has its challenges. It has its headaches. I was hired to be one of 3 advisors. And the second day at work, my supervisor who had hired me called me into her office and she said, "We need to talk." And I was like, "Have I screwed up already? I've been here 2 days. Like, I'm still jet lagged." And she's like, No, you're fine. But I need to tell you that I'm leaving. And I was like, "Excuse me?" She's like, "No, I was supposed to leave in December or I was supposed to leave in August, but they wanted me to stay on to at least get you, hired and initiated." And I was like, "Okay." So she left in March. And then the other advisor got another position within our outreach office, working with community, and she is a local. She was Qatar, so it was perfectly suited for her. But so by spring break of that semester, I was on my own in the office.
Wow.
Yeah. And then the director of records at the time and my new supervisor in August of 2016 left. And so the administration was like, "You've been doing this job for a little over a year now. You're managing the office. You've got a new advisor hired. How would you like to move up and run the office and actually do the job you're doing? Like, we'll pay you to do that." And I was like, "Okay." So that's how I moved into the administration. And it was, I probably would not have gotten that opportunity in College Station that quickly to be, to put my stamp on the advising office and implement some best practices from main campus and things that I've learned through NAKATA. So it's been a really great opportunity for me to grow and be challenged and rise to the occasion. And my boss seems pretty happy with my job performance. So I feel pretty good about where I am right now.
Yeah, but they haven't let you go, so that's a good sign.
No. And I've been very, very blessed. My current supervisor is the best supervisor I have ever had. He challenges me. He gives me a lot of, he has a lot of patience, and he listens to me when I'm not quite sure, what the best option for something is or whatever. But he also trusts me to know what I'm doing, and he considers, my input on a lot of things as well. And he is a supervisor that I really feel like I work with and not for. He's very collaborative. We have a great team in place over here. I'm really excited at where we are and where we're going.
Yeah, sounds like very much a team effort type of deal over there. And I guess in your position right now as assistant director, what does that now entail? Because you're talking about it's more administrative, but you also do some advising. So can you talk more about that?
Yeah, so we are a very small campus. We only have about 500 students. So by necessity, there are several of us that wear multiple hats. So I'm assistant director for academic services. So that covers not only academic advising, and I do advise for, normally I would just advise my honors students. Right now we are down a team member. So I'm advising freshmen and sophomore students for the last year as well. And then my other advisor does juniors and seniors. So there's that. And then things that I never would have had the opportunity to do on main campus, scholarships and financial aid. I work with the Qatar Foundation Financial Office to liaise with them for scholarship applications. I kind of manage that process on our side. I also liaise with the billing. We don't do our own tuition billing. Qatar Foundation does that for us. So I send them all of the tuition information, and then I work with students to get payments, plans, and all that stuff. So we manage that. My office is also in charge of ordering textbooks, and we have got a fantastic lady, and she's been here just over a year now. The lady that did that for us, the team member, she left, and so I did that job for a year. So I am uniquely cross-trained in that any job in my team's wheelhouse I can do. I'm trained to do all of those. And then I also handle academic integrity violations and that other duties as required. So whatever my boss needs me to do. So I wear a lot of hats in this position. But I do still do some of the daily advising, particularly more this last year since we've been down a team member, and I do really love that process. I really do.
Now, do you also do outreach or work with the outreach office?
Yeah, occasionally we do. And we also work very closely with the student affairs team. They're down a couple of team members as well. So, everybody's helping out and pitching in where we can. But yeah, we work with the outreach office. I've done some presentations for them about to some of their, they bring in high school students for workshops or whatever. And so I've talked to them about, some of our majors and done a little bit of recruiting as well. So yeah, we all work very closely together.
And so you're mentioning it being a smaller campus. So are there certain majors that are offered at your campus?
Yeah, so we are strictly engineering. So we have chemical, electrical, petroleum, and mechanical. And Texas A&M was approached by the Qatar Foundation specifically for those majors because that is what Qatar needed at the time the campus was founded. So we opened in 2003. And we just signed our second, third 10-year agreement. They agree every 10 years, to keep. So we are completely funded by the Qatar Foundation, which is headed by, basically it was founded by Sheikha Moza, the current emir's mother, and her daughter now is running the day-to-day operations. But it was really to bring American education, higher education, to Qatar. And so there are 6 American universities that make up Education City, and each of us has a specialty. So Texas A&M has the engineering. Northwestern has journalism and communications. Virginia Commonwealth has art and design. Will Cornell has med school. Carnegie Mellon has biology and computer science. And then Georgetown has their public service. So we're all very complementary. There's not a lot of overlap. But if, depending on what you want to do or where you want to go, but you want to stay here in Doha for your college education, you have a lot to choose from really well-known institutions.
Oh, that's fascinating. So have there been situations where a student started in one major for one institution and then transferred in a way to another one?
Yeah, we frequently get probably the institution we get most of our transfers within Education City. It was going to be Carnegie Mellon because their computer science has some courses that are in common with our electrical engineering. So we do see you, but typically once you get past your first maybe 2 semesters, it's real difficult because there's not a lot of overlap between all of the degree programs. But students do have the opportunity to cross-register at the other institutions. So if I had a student who needed a creative arts credit and they wanted to go take the art history at Virginia Commonwealth, they can do that. So they get to experience that university life as well. So we have students that do that. We have students that do language classes at Georgetown. So it's the Qatar Foundation calls it a multiversity. So it gives them a unique opportunity that they really probably would not be able to do on the main campus. It would be nearly impossible to take a class in Chicago and in College Station, but you can. We're literally right next door here. So
that is awesome.
Yeah.
Now, are some of those classes, I guess, would you consider them those bottleneck courses that they need for graduation, but they might not be able to register for it, or it gets full, so they take it at one of the other institutions?
Not so much necessarily that, because we do a really good job of enrollment managing and planning our courses to make sure that we are offering enough seats especially in the freshman level classes. And we do have some bottleneck courses, but it's really just they may not, for their creative arts, we might have a literature course and they want to do an art. They might want to do something different. Or they want to do psychology for social science, and we have anthropology on the schedule. So they're like, hey, I'm going to go over here to CMU and take this class, which is fine.
No, that's really cool. Now I'm like, I want to go there.
Yeah.
Now, you've mentioned in a past piece that you love helping students figure things out, like their major, their potential career paths, other interests. But I'm sure we have newer advisors who might be listening, or even seasoned advising professionals who might want to know, what is your process with helping students figure out their major or career paths? Or I guess another way would be any advice that you have for advising professionals who might feel they struggle at that aspect of working with their students.
A lot of times At this institution, I have 4 majors. So if they don't want to do chemical, they could, and they want to stay in engineering here, they're kind of limited. But the first question I always ask them is, what did you want to be when you were little, when you grew up? I wanted to be a train engineer. I still want to be a train engineer. I've actually done that twice, 2 epic days. That's another story. That's another podcast. But I always ask them what their passion is. If they could do anything, what would they choose to do? And for a lot of them, they are in the right institution. But my general rule of thumb is I would rather help a student be successful and be happy, even if it's not in my institution. I want to help them find the right fit. And I do have students who they thrive in their liberal arts courses, in their histories, their political science, their arts. They do really well. When it comes to the math and the science, they're not interested, or it's not their forte. And so we have those conversations. So again, we do sit down and we say, okay, these are the classes that you're in now. How are your grades? Here's the set of classes you're expected to take the next semester. Do you think you're going to meet the minimum GPA requirement? You're going to, if not, let's the typical advising conversations. Sure. But really, I want to know what their passion is and what drives them, and why did they choose to come to Texas A&M? For a lot of students, there's a lot of family pressure, of course, and that's global. But I've always heard students say, well, my parents will only pay for this if I become an engineer, because engineering is probably the most respected profession over here currently. So we're in high demand. But then a lot of students would say, well, I got a scholarship from the Ministry of Education or from Qatar Petroleum, and so they're paying for it, and they've got a job waiting for me when I graduate. So that's what I want to do, or that's why I'm here. And some students will get their degree and then go on to not use it at all, but they did find something that they were interested in as an undergrad. It might have been an experience that they had with maybe our leadership exchange program with the main campus, or the service learning opportunities, or maybe just a club or something, or they got interested in something and they found it. So all of those conversations happen in our office. It's about so much. I mean, it is about scheduling. We do have to do that because of our unique process, because currently we are doing conflict-free scheduling for every single student. We take all of the classes that each student is expected to take in the next semester. We plan that out during advising. We dump all of that into a scheduling software program, and it creates a conflict-free schedule, and then we put them in the classes. And it's for the students, we try to make it as stress-free as possible. Our main campus, way too big. You get what you get. But yeah, we guarantee that as long as they do what they're supposed to do and make their grades, we guarantee that the next set of classes is going to be there when they need to take them. Now, if they don't make grades, if they need to repeat a course, then we adjust. And sometimes those schedules are not as pretty as their original one. But yeah, it really, you just got to listen. You just got to listen to the students. They might not tell you directly what they want to do or what's bothering them or what they're worried about, but they will tell you. You just need to be listening for it. And that's probably one of the first things that I learned, is to shut up and let them talk. I used to work right next door to an advisor who almost had a scripted conversation. And so when students would come in and ask questions and he would answer, I'm like, that's not what she asked you. So you just got to listen.
Maybe that person should record it themselves and they just hit play depending on what question they get asked and answer that they want to give.
Yeah. And so again, that was an example of what I did not want to do as an advisor. Because they'll tell you everything you need to know. Maybe not in so many words. They may not come out and be blunt about it, but they will tell you.
Oh, yeah. And I'm seeing a pattern here where, whether it was the history teaching or with your experience when you were a student as an academic with your academic advisor, or hearing another academic advisor next door, it's all about things that they're doing. We're like, I don't want to do that when I'm working with my student or, my profession. So it's always doing the opposite.
Yes. And I don't know that I'm necessarily contrarian by nature, but or maybe I am. Maybe I am contrarian by nature. But again, I also I want students to have a good experience, to feel positive, to leave my office, and even if I have just written them a letter saying your grades are not where they need to be, and for now you can't continue with us. I want to help them find that resolution and figure out what the next step is, even if it's not at our institution, even if it's not in our major. Let me help you find something. I want them to take away something good from that experience, from every single advising experience. Even if I have to tell them no for whatever reason, I always like to try to say, if I have to say no, but let's look at something else. Let's try this.
Absolutely. No, I think that's the perfect way of saying it. Now, you were mentioning earlier about, how advising was when you had first started, and now you've been in advising for 15 or more years now. How have you seen advising change over the years? And with everything that's happened with the pandemic and how we've kind of had to, rethink a lot of things, in your opinion, where do you kind of see advising going in the future?
Well, when I started, a lot of advisors were like me, and they had kind of just gotten into it, and they might have been administrators or whatever, and they kind of got advising dumped on them. Now, particularly, especially the more I interact with NAKATA, I really see the professionalization of it, and students really considering it as a career choice as undergrads, or working on, degrees in higher ed administration or student affairs, something like that. It's a conscious choice to be an advisor, and the scholarship has just exploded, which is amazing. I do not have any postgrad degrees. I just have a baccalaureate, but I do have a lot of experience, and so I feel like that is helpful to me. I'm very much a practitioner more than a theoretician, but I do see the professionalization of that, and I see it going more and more towards that, which is good. I think it's great for people to be trained to do the job that they are wanting to do, instead of, someone random coming in and just winging it. Because you can't just wing it. I mean, you can a little bit, but there are student rules, there are university policies, when I was on the main campus, I was working with pre-service teachers. So there were state of Texas certification requirements. So we had to make sure they were meeting with all of their coursework and everything. And so you can't just say, oh, just go take these classes. So I'm really glad that advising has become more of a resource for students than just an option. We do required advising on our campus. And for some students, it doesn't take long. They're right where they need to be. They're on track. Their grades are good. It's a quick check-in. For some students, it takes a little bit longer. We've got to have those deeper conversations. What happens if, Miss, I didn't make the grade? What's my next step? Can I retake it? What if we're not offering it next semester? All of those. So you have to have those conversations. But I do see that with the pandemic, technology has been amazing. Our office segued pretty quickly and pretty easily to Zoom meetings. And for the freshmen and sophomores this year, we emailed every single one of them. I sat down, I did their degree plan, I updated everything, said, here's what you need to take the next semester, emailed it to them and said, let me know if you have questions. Here are my open Zoom hours. Come meet with me. Let's, if we need to go over this, make sure you sign it and send it back so I know that you've received it. So that has worked really well for us. But again, we're small. There's two of us right now advising in the office. And so we are able to handle that population of students. I know probably some bigger institutions are maybe not able to be as hands-on as we are, just simply because of numbers. But technology has been good for us. Our students have adapted beautifully. I feel bad for our freshmen, the students that came in the fall of 2020, because they didn't get to have a typical freshman year. Most of them haven't been on campus and we did have our building open to students for a little bit, till about early April. And then, of course, the numbers started to go up. And so the government said everybody's doing remote learning, working from home. So we shifted back to fully online. So we've been working remotely since March. And we're hoping that we can be back on campus in the fall with our new freshmen. But I feel like we're going to have 2 freshman classes in the fall because our sophomores will be having their first on-campus experience. If everything goes to plan and the numbers don't spike, we're hopeful that it will.
Yeah, fingers crossed. And that's a great point, though, in terms of you have the freshman class that technically has their students. They've been doing the classes, they've been doing the work. Maybe they've been on campus for a little bit, but for the most part, been remote. And then if everything goes well and you're actually on campus, maybe full time in the fall, what does that look like for them? Where it's like, well, I've been a student, but not really a student because I haven't been on the campus in the classroom with the instructor, with the other students, being able to roam about the campus. Has there been conversations, or whether it's within advising or just in general at your campus, in terms of how that might look for those sophomores that are kind of starting for the first time?
Yeah, I think the student affairs folks they do our orientation in the summer, and I'm hopeful. We did an online orientation for summer 2020, so I'm hopeful that when we do the in-person orientation for summer 2021, we can bring those kids, those sophomores, in for some of the fun stuff. Not necessarily, they don't need to go through all the advising and registration and IT bits again. They've done that. They're very well versed in all of that. But for the parts where the students get to talk to upperclassmen and they get to hang out and they do some fun activities and all of that, I'm hoping that we can include those sophomores as well, so they can have that experience. And then, maybe they can provide some experience for these brand new incoming students as well. We have, most of our students are local from Doha. About half of them are Qatari citizens, and the other half are born and raised in Doha, but they have their citizenship of wherever their parents are from. Qatar doesn't have birthright citizenship like the U.S. does. And we do have a small international student population who truly come from, India, Pakistan. I've got one student in Georgia right now. He hasn't been to campus yet. He's still home. So hopefully for the fall, we can welcome those students, and truly make them feel like they are part of the Aggie family, and make up some for the crappy freshman year that they had.
There's no other way to put it.
I feel so bad for them. We call them our babies. So I'm like, I feel bad for my babies, because they didn't get to do any of the normal stuff.
Yeah, especially last year when I think a lot of institutions, we thought, it's only gonna be a couple weeks and then we'll be back on campus. And nope, over a year later, here we are.
But they have the juniors and seniors navigated, especially the seniors, their last year online and their senior design. Each of our majors, they culminate with the senior design sequence and project. And it's not unusual during a normal year to see seniors in the building at all hours working on these projects. And they did it all from home. They were very resilient. They adapted beautifully. Like, I'm very, very proud of the way that they handled everything, all of the challenges that got thrown at them. Because it was, it's difficult 2 semesters anyway, the senior sequence. And then to throw in a pandemic and worry and stress on top of that, and some of them were international students. So their families are back in their home countries, and, they can't get home, or, their families can't get here to pick them up, so it was a lot to worry about, and they rose to the challenge.
Oh, yeah. And to think just how quickly a lot of them adapted, and they're like, you know what, if this is the situation we're in, we're going to make the most of it. If I can't attend my commencement graduation ceremony, or, I can't be in the classroom, but, do I wait and, hopefully things work out and I come back later to finish, or I'm already on my roll to get my degree. Let me go and just get these classes done. So, they've made it work, and they've been very successful at it too.
Yeah.
Now, one question I have is, you got the academic advising position, and then, you get to Doha, and then it's like, well, hey, I'm leaving, but we had this administrator role, and oh my gosh, what do I do? And any advice for individuals who might be an academic advisor or counselor right now, and they're thinking about wanting to make that jump into an administrator role? Do you have any advice for them?
Yeah, I would say consider the upper administration. That's like if you move up to an administrator role, consider who's above you, and can you work with that team. I'm, like I said, very blessed. I have a great supervisor, and I can go to him with anything. And he truly does advocate for our team and for our office to the Dean's Council and to the upper level administrators. So that's very, very critical. If I didn't have him, I might be reconsidering, staying in the position, because he really does do a lot for us. And he's over academic services and student affairs. So again, we all work really closely together, and he elevates things that need to be elevated. And, he also keeps a lot of stuff from coming down on us as well. But I would say if you're considering a move into administration, consider who's above you and who you'll be reporting to, and can you work with this person? Do they know what you do? What your office is, because some upper level administrators, they may have never served in an advising role, maybe not as a faculty advisor or what. And because a lot of upper level administrators are faculty, at least on our campus. And so it's been a while maybe since they were in the student seat. Their advising might have been very different. They might not have had advising. So it's also very important to make sure you can advocate for yourself, for your team, and make sure they understand how critical what we do is to student success. We're very proud of our first year retention rate. We're very proud of our 4 and 5 year graduation rate on this campus. And I'm going to brag on my team. It is because we start with them their freshman year, and we don't let up. We do a lot of hand-holding is maybe not the right word, but we make sure that they know we are here. We are a resource. We can connect them to other resources if needed. So it's very important that the administration know that we are critical to student success, and those graduation rates would not be near as high if they didn't have us. We did go through our ABET accreditation last semester, and one of the things that the accreditation team noted was that the advising is very robust on our campus, and that was something that they really picked up on and commented, and the dean was very impressed. So that was nice.
Yeah, so good job to everyone on that.
Yeah.
Now you're mentioning, in this answer, you mentioned resource, and you've talked about being a resource for other questions that we've asked already in this podcast interview. And you mentioned NAKATA being a resource. So maybe talk about that. Can you talk about your involvement in NAKATA and how that's been?
Sure. I wouldn't be the advisor I am today without NAKATA. When I first started, my first conference was in 2009 in San Antonio, and I really didn't know what I was getting into, and I was really overwhelmed because it was so big. But Texas has a lot of advisors, and San Antonio was a relatively easy conference, to attend, and because most of us, it was a day or so drive, if that. But I was like, wow, there are all these advisors. I want to be a part of this. These are the movers and shakers of this career path that I have chosen. So I want to be involved. And we also have a professional development organization on our campus called University Advisors and Counselors. And I got involved in that organization. And through that, again, I met some really influential folks that have become some of my closest friends. A shout out to Sam, Sam Murdoch. Mm-hmm. And so, Sam has kind of mentored me and taken me under his wing. And he was like, you need to be involved in NAKATA. And hey, I'm going to nominate you for this. And I'm going to do that. And I'm like, oh, well, yeah, he nominated me for my first leadership position. He said, okay, Mather, I need you to just listen. I was like, what have you done, Murdoch? But NAKATA has been hugely influential. And I have met some of my closest friends through NAKATA. I have we call it our NAKATA Girl Tribe group that we chat all the time. We get together for Zoom meetings occasionally. But it's really good to know that there are other people out there, not just in my institution, not just on my campus, that also share the passion, and that they really want to see students be the best that they can be, and that they really want to, contribute not just to student success, but to everyone's success, because the scholarship I read the journal. And so that makes me a better advisor because of the work they've done. So it's not just for students, but it's for me as well, and for you and for all of the members of NAKATA. So yeah, that is a cost that, my institution, we don't always have the budget, that's a cost I will pay myself. I will absolutely make sure that my membership is always current.
Yeah, there's so much that you can get out of that membership, and then just hopefully we're back to attending conferences in person and be able to see one another. And that's where you also get to make those networking connections with others. And one of the things that you participated was the Emerging Leaders Program as a mentor. So can you talk about your decision to apply for that, and any advice you have for those that might be interested, whether they are looking to maybe apply as a leader or as a mentor?
Yeah, I would love to talk. ELP was such a great experience, and that's actually how we met.
Yep.
So I applied as I didn't realize that you didn't have to be an emerging leader before you could be a mentor, until someone said, no, you've had a leadership position, you qualify. We would love, and I didn't really think about it until someone said, hey, you should apply to be a mentor. And so again, people put bugs in my ears, and I try to listen to them. So yeah, I did apply, and my mentee, it was fabulous. And we actually already had a working relationship, because when I was on the steering committee for the Advising Communities Division, she was one of my commission chairs. So we had already worked together for a couple of years, and we both decided that we really wanted to continue that relationship, and we still chat very frequently. But yeah, that program, I have seen so much good come out of it, and it's so worth it, because there's questions that get asked that you might not have thought to ask or to answer, and that kind of help you reconsider things in a different light. And I really like that NAKATA does not define leadership as only holding a chair position or as a board member or whatever. It's like their definition of leadership is broad, and that gives you so many ways to contribute. You can write, you can, do presentations, you can be a part of ELP, you can hold those leadership positions, but it's not limited to just that. And I really like that. Yeah, it was a wonderful experience.
Speaking of NAKATA too, this is an interview that's going to get posted in June, and during the month of June, Charlie Nutt is retiring. And, you've shared your thoughts about Charlie in a video compilation for NAKATA's Global Advising Week. And you shared a story that I got to share at a Cal State webinar that Charlie was a part of. But is there anything you want to say to Charlie, or start a Charlie story you want to share on the podcast?
Oh gosh, Charlie is just, Charlie right now, Charlie is NAKATA. You think of NAKATA, you think Charlie Nutt. And I'm excited for him to get to retire and maybe be slightly less active, although I don't think Charlie knows how to be slightly less active. But I'm also excited to see what direction the new executive director will take us in as well. I think there's some really great opportunities coming up for NAKATA. So I'm excited to see what direction she leads us in. But yeah, Charlie is just, again, he's just so personable, and I never thought that he would know who I was, but he knows who I am, and he remembers. And this is a 10,000 member organization. How does he do that? That never fails to amaze me. But that's just Charlie.
Yeah, he's got a good memory.
He does. He really does.
And he's got a good indication in terms of when he sees someone, he's like, I know what they're about, so maybe we could have them do this or join this committee or do this project.
Yeah, he is really good about matching people with their strengths, and things that areas that the organization needs. He's really good at that. He does have a knack for that.
And I think a lot of people listening are like, yep, he tapped me to do this or this, and I was busy, but I still did it. And it's like, right? Because you can't say no. Even though he will say, you can tell me no. It's like, can I really? No. So
when Charlie Nutt asks you to do something, you say yes.
Yep, absolutely. And a lot of times good things come out of it. So
absolutely.
And as we wind down on time, let's do a speed round of questions.
Okay.
Now, you like to travel, you like to cook, you like music and attending concerts. So let's do a favorites questions list.
Okay.
So, favorite band,
Foo Fighters.
favorite concert you've attended,
Backstage at the Foo Fighters.
favorite concert venue.
That's a tough one. I've been really lucky to go to some good ones. Probably the Woodlands, the Cynthia Woods Mitchell Pavilion in the Woodlands, right outside of Houston. It's beautiful. It's a great venue. I've been on the lawn. I've been in the covered seats. I have stood. I have sat. It's a great venue. It's easy to get to, very friendly, and it's just really pretty.
Yeah. Well, once everything kind of opens back up, maybe I'll go there. The favorite place you've traveled to?
Oh, Barcelona. I love Barcelona. Yeah, it's a beautiful city.
Another place I haven't been to. I'll have to add that to my list. I feel like I'm asking you these questions so I can make my own list. Let me do what Amanda's done. Favorite type of food to make?
Favorite type of food to make? I've been really into Asian and Indian cooking lately. I switched to being vegetarian about a year and a half ago, and Thomas is still... he eats mostly what I cook, but he will throw in some, grilled chicken or whatever. But yeah, I've been really experimenting a lot with Asian and Indian. I've learned how to cook tofu. I've learned how to cook seitan, all that stuff. So that's been a whole lot of fun for me to learn to do that.
Yeah, and tofu is great. You just put it in anything.
It's so versatile. It really is. Yeah.
Favorite food to eat?
Mexican.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's usually... if it's not the first thing we get when we get to Texas, it's either Mexican food or Whataburger. But yeah, I love me a good Mexican restaurant. Yeah.
And if listeners have any questions or want to connect, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Email me. Probably the easiest email address is amather@tamu.edu. So amather@tamu.edu. And that will get forwarded to my Qatar address. So absolutely, I would love to answer any questions or talk more about my experience, whatever. If you're thinking about moving internationally and you want some advice, shoot me a message.
Awesome. And we've reached time for the interview, and I wish we could have another hour, and we'll have to definitely have you on again, especially since Colin wasn't able to make it because of internet connection issues. We'll have to have you on again so we both could be here for that. But Amanda, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me. This was a whole lot of fun.
We'll definitely do it again and hope to see you at a future conference. Cross your fingers, Cincinnati.
All right. Yes.